Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So I have made a PowerPoint about the Alien and the Predator movies, as well as the Alien versus Predator movies. So kind of everything within those franchises, but it's going to be looking a little bit different. So I don't know if anybody actually like watches these or if you just kind of like throw it on in the background and listen to me talk. But I am going to kind of break down the changes. Anyway, so normally what I do is I have kind of a block of text on the slide that I read off and then kind of like interject like other thoughts here and there about, and then I have like kind of pictures on the slides as well. But today we're going to be doing a little different. So I just have pictures on the slides, no text other than like the name of the movie. But that's it. And then I have all of the stuff that I've written on my computer. So we're doing a little bit of a different format. I don't think anybody cares, but we're trying something new, and I figured I'd point it out anyway. So, um, as we have kind of gotten out of the way, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of everything. Okay, so I watched the first Alien movie when I was in college as a part of a film class that I was in. And at the time, I kind of had semi mixed feelings about it. I was I there's kind of several reasons why I was kind of mixed about it. I didn't love that class. That teacher kind of drove me crazy. My anxiety was pretty high at the time, so I wasn't super receptive to anything in the kind of horror sphere. So I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I thought it was well made, but I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. So I kind of just um, decided that I didn't really care about watching any of the other Alien movies. I had watched the one, I was like, okay, this is kind of all that I'm really interested in. But then several months ago, I was going through some of the Arnold Schwarzenegger classic movies that I hadn't seen before. So I watched Terminator 1 and 2, great movies. And then I decided I would give Predator a try. And I was pleasantly surprised by what I offered. Sorry, spoiler. I thought it would be kind of a dumb action movie, but it actually had a lot more going on, which I appreciated. And then right after that, I watched Prey. And then a few weeks later, the new Killer of Killers came out, and I watched that as well. So I was definitely into Predator as a result of those three movies. Um, but I was curious to know kind of more about it. From what I had heard, people said that those were the only three good movies in the franchise, but I was kind of curious, like, what else was out there. And you can't really talk about Predator without Alien. So, on a whim, I was kind of like, let me just throw on Aliens. Like, let me just see what is up. And then I was like, okay, yeah, now I want to see all the rest of the Alien movies. So I decided to kind of make this that's a combination of Alien and Predator. And then since I'm a completionist, I wanted to watch the Alien versus Predator movies as well. Um, and then at the time of me watching all of the Alien movies, I timed it kind of perfectly so that I had caught up to all the Alien movies right when Alien Earth started. That was a total coincidence. I didn't even know that the show existed until like halfway through my marathon. And then I didn't know when it was coming out. And then I just kind of coincidentally timed it perfectly so that it came out at the exact right time when I was done with the movies. So I include Alien Earth in this as well. So it's like, yes, it's all the movies, but also the show. Um, so I am going to rank them, the movies within their respective franchises first. So we're going to talk about Alien first, then Alien versus Predator, then Predator, and then I'm going to go through my ranking of all of the movies together. Um, okay, so let's get into it. The worst Alien movie, which I think is not really a surprise to anybody, is Alien Resurrection. That's kind of the common consensus. It's if this one's not your least favorite, then it's Alien 3, but I disagree with that. I think if you watch this movie and this is not your least favorite, then you're a little crazy. But whatever. Okay, so Alien Resurrection was really bad. It does seem to know what it's going for. Like I get what it was trying to do. It's definitely trying to be this very campy, over the top, like almost silly movie. Um, it's like you can't have that basketball scene, the one here, like where Ripley is like Ripley, who's a clone of Ripley, but also combined with xenomorph DNA. You can't have a character like that who shows off how strong she is by shooting a basketball backwards to impress Ron Perlman. Like you you're not trying to make the most serious movie ever when that's like your opening introduction to a lot of these characters. Like that scene happens in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. Like it knows what it's trying to do. It's not trying to be anything more than like what it is, which I can appreciate. Like I love a good silly movie. But when you start off a movie like that, I was ready. I was ready for it to be really crazy and like just kind of absurd and over the top. And then it just kind of wasn't that. This movie's worst crime is that it's really boring. Scenes took forever, dialogue is cliche and weird, and it just genuinely, it was just not what I was hoping for. I don't mean to discount how crazy this movie is. It is crazy. It's like balls to the wall insane for a lot of it. But like for most of it, I was pretty unengaged and bored because you have these crazy ideas, but it's not really the whole movie. It's kind of like intermingled throughout, and the end is pretty crazy too. But and that was kind of like my favorite part of the movie was how just like insane the ending was. But I was not really sold. I don't know. The pacing wasn't great. The dialogue was weird, and it's like I don't know. Everyone says Alien 3 is the boring one. When I think this one is the boring one. This it's like it tried to be more gory and body horror forward, and I think that is inherently uninteresting to me, just kind of like on a base level. Like if the whole point of something is for me to be grossed out by it, then I'm not interested in that. I just think that's like it's just not something that I find particularly interesting because number one, I get grossed out, and then also that's kind of just it. Like if the whole point of and I don't think the whole point of this movie was to be gross. Not like something like The Thing or like The Substance, but it does kind of have similar flavors in that, and so that's when I was kind of like when I see something a little too body horror, a little too gross, I'm just kind of like check out a little bit, which is definitely a personal issue. Like I know that's on me. That doesn't have to be on everybody, which is totally fine. The one thing that I did kind of like about this movie was that was Ripley's storyline, which is a little crazy, but she's having this like weird maternal attachment to the xenomorph human combo baby, this guy here. Um, like she she's a clone and she's mixed with xenomorph DNA. And because of that, they were able to like grow a xenomorph in her and then surgically remove it and then have it grow. And then that xenomorph, which was just a regular schmegular xenomorph, then uh the particular details on it are not we don't see it, thank God. But Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings is a scientist, and he's very sexually attracted to the xenomorph, which is strange. And as a result of his sexual attraction, something happens. We don't see what, which I'm very glad about. But the xenomorph gets pregnant with this. So the this is Ripley's grandchild, not even her child. It's her grandchild. Um, so Ripley feels kind of a connection to it because she's like, "Oh, that's my baby. Like that's mine. Like it grew out of me." Which is a little weird, but like I'm kind of into it. Like, I don't know, it was a little endearing at points. I don't know. It's just really weird. It's weird, but it's I don't know. I don't know. It was like it was kind of sweet at points. But until the end, which is crazy. But I also wasn't really into Winona Ryder's story. I think it was kind of weird and didn't really go anywhere. I get the idea that they're going for, like a robot who's more humane than the humans are, but it didn't really go anywhere and it didn't really do too much. And the whole space pirate crew was kind of boring too. Some of the deaths were fun, I guess, but I was mostly bored. I also thought this movie looked really ugly. It was kind of in the era, like the early 2000s, when like everything was just green and brown, and it just doesn't look very good. It looks like an early Xbox game that like has a crazy amount of filters on it. And then, it's like this I don't know. I guess I won't spoil the ending in case you're curious about it, but the ending is pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, anyway, this movie didn't work for me. It didn't work for a lot of people. I would not suggest watching this one. If you're a completionist, you can, but I don't know. I did not have fun with it. Okay, next one on the list is Alien 3. So, Alien 3, we're going in a pretty big jump in quality here. Like, Alien Resurrection on Letterboxd, I believe I gave 1.5 stars to, whereas Alien 3 I gave 3 stars to. So we're kind of doing a big jump in quality, like, immediately, which, awesome. Love that. I love not having to watch too many bad movies. So Alien 3 was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. There were some aspects that I really enjoyed and some less so. Obviously, this movie is very flawed. I would be a little insane to say that it was perfect. So I'm going to just kind of go into the negatives of what I didn't really like about this movie. Um, so I didn't really like that this movie killed Hicks and Newt like very unceremoniously and like just right in the beginning of the movie. It was annoying at best and jarring at worst. When you start a movie like that, I think I thought that I was in for a real stinker. I absolutely understand the intention behind it, but its execution just felt very awkward. You grow to care about these characters in Aliens, and then they just are like dead immediately, and it's so jarring, and it feels like completely out of nowhere that it just was very weird. I dislike the pacing a lot of the times in this movie too. Sometimes scenes would just go on for way too long, like the scene towards the end of the movie where they're chasing the xenomorph into the lead thing. Just too long. Yeah, cut it down. We did not need that scene to be as long as it was. It was very awkward and just kept going. And also the CGI, and that is genuinely some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. Granted, this movie is from 1997, so I'm trying not to be too harsh on the CGI, but the CGI did not look very good. The CGI was not very good. I really wish they had just gone practical for that, though. I know that logistically it's difficult. Whatever. Anyway, I feel like some scenes were too short in this movie too. We never really got to know a lot of the new characters before they died, and I wish that there was fewer characters in this movie so that we got more time to flesh them out so that we cared about them before they died. I really dislike the rapey tone of everything. That felt very out of place. Alien is all about like psychosexual violence. That's certainly not a new theme to Alien, but just having it thrown out in the way that it is in Alien 3 just feels like it's stripping the theme of its nuance and making it very direct and boring. What makes Alien and its psychosexual and like kind of rape themes of it, especially in the original, so interesting is because it is perpetrated against men. And that's not something that we had ever really seen before, especially in sci-fi. Like I think it's really significant that the like the face hugger scene happens to a man and that he has an unwanted pregnancy as a result of that, and you kind of have that horror and all of the emotions that kind of are tied to that, all the negative, horrific, all that. And I think it's really significant that it happens to a man because it really just contextualizes the violence in a different way and is a kind of gives a unique perspective on these things that historically have been depicted in movies as happening to women. And so it's just kind of it gives it a really interesting perspective that makes it all the more horrific. In Alien 3, you kind of turn that idea of like, yes, Alien is all about like, sexual violence and stuff like that, but when you have it just be about all these male prisoners who are really interested in raping Ripley, like that makes it so much less interesting because it's just kind of generic. And not to like sound annoying and be like, "Oh, the rape is generic," but like it takes something that felt new and it makes it so that it's just very like everything we've seen before. And I was really not into that. I thought that was kind of the more boring choice to make. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. I was not into that. Did not like it. Um, so I also didn't love Ripley's personality in this movie. She felt timid, like she was almost meek, which sometimes I liked that and sometimes I didn't. It's very jarring to see her act like this, especially after Aliens when she's so competent. Like she knows what the fuck she's doing in that movie, and she is the only one who really knows what she's doing, and she's very capable and and all kind of she's smart and she can fight and all this. So it's pretty jarring to then go to this where she's just kind of quiet and afraid and I don't know. It just felt very strange. I wasn't really into it. Um, but anyway, so those were kind of my main flaws with this movie. To get into the positives, there were actually more positives than I was expecting, and I know I kind of just harped on this movie and the things that I didn't like, but there were actually some positives that I enjoyed about it. I actually enjoyed the bleak and miserable tone. I know that that's kind of a lot of people's complaint about this movie. Aside, if you remove the kind of rape aspect of it, which isn't really that prevalent, it's really only like talked about a little bit, and then you see kind of like a rape attempt, but it's like nothing graphic and nothing really happens. So it feels like very much like a background theme, and then once we kind of get more into the xenomorph, like it just kind of goes away, which I was perfectly fine with. But overall, I did like the bleak and miserable tone of this movie. Um, One thing I think I really enjoy about this series as a whole is I really like how each director really got to take their movie in the direction that they wanted to go in. Yes, I know that it leaves the trilogy feeling very disjointed and not really as a trilogy. And I know that David Fincher had a lot of issues with the studio behind the scenes, and this is not what he wanted it to be, which I would have loved to see. Like, this just does not feel like something that David Fincher of today or anything else that he has done feels like something he would be really interested in making. But I do think that there's enough there of David Fincher that makes this movie interesting, and I think the tone is one of those things. Um, and this movie being connected to the previous two really does it a disservice. I really wish that it was its own thing because I think if you remove all of the like Ripley weight of lore and knowledge and everything, I think that this movie would have been a lot better. Um, I think that I do overall like Ripley here. It's kind of conflicting because I do genuinely think that this would be better if it was a standalone, and it wasn't Alien 3 and it wasn't tied to the previous and it was just its own thing. I think that would have really let David Fincher do more of what he wanted to do. Um, However, my favorite character in this movie was Charles Dance. I thought he was really interesting. Every time he was on screen, I was curious what would happen. I enjoyed him investigating Ripley. I enjoyed their relationship. I really enjoyed their conversations. The dialogue in this movie has some low points, but it was mostly really good. Characters speak in a kind of vague way, but it leaves room for intrigue. And I also really enjoyed the editing, especially in the early scenes. The way they cut from the funeral to the dog was actually kind of cool. I also thought the directing was pretty cool. Shots have really cool composition and movement. I liked the visuals. People complain about the grays and browns, but I actually liked the grays and browns. I thought they were done well. It's which is kind of funny given my criticism of Alien Resurrections, but I thought that it was much more intentional here and not like filtered. It felt like the sets were designed to look like that, whereas in Resurrection it was like filters. I think that David Fincher was really intentional with everything that he did, and the muted color palette really brought out the misery that he was trying to create. And I also really like the anti-corporate messaging. How the only way to truly escape corporate greed is death. Like that's really fucking bleak, but also really interesting. Um, sorry, spoilers for this movie, but Ripley dies at the end, which is why she has to be resurrected in Alien Resurrections, even though that movie takes place 200 years later. But anyway, I thought that the way that she died in this movie was pretty cool. It didn't have a whole lot of emotion behind it, but it almost did. It was almost there. And I was genuinely locked in during large chunks of this movie. I wanted to know what would happen next, and I was engaged with what was on screen. Um, but I think that this movie does have a lot of going for it, and it almost gets there. Almost. I think that buried underneath all of this is my favorite Alien movie. A movie that isn't afraid to be slow and introspective, which is definitely my shit, and one with characters presenting a really interesting moral question. It gets so close that I have to kind of admire it all. David Fincher obviously found his groove, considering he made Seven 3 years after this. He definitely figured it out. And I think that he was really close to making a great movie here. He just kind of missed it. Um, Also, like, not to talk about Resident Evil 4, which I do literally all the time, but Ripley basically has La Plaga in her heart here, and it's kind of treated like that, which I was like, that's kind of cool. But Charles Dance is basically her Louise and like gives her the suppressant, and then, but Ripley can't go to Louise's lab and get the blue light surgery. Damn. Sorry, Ripley. Anyway, I thought this movie was better than some people give it credit for. I was intrigued. I don't know. It's not really one I'd love to rewatch anytime soon, but I thought it was interesting. And I appreciate that. Okay, next one on the list is Alien Covenant. So it's kind of hard to talk about this movie without also talking about Prometheus, which I will later. So I will kind of be referencing Prometheus throughout this just because they're so connected to each other. It's hard to talk about one without the other. So I did like Covenant. Again, this is a movie that I gave 3 stars on Letterboxd. I thought it was pretty good. Um, I do think that it is slightly worse than Prometheus, which is why it's on this spot on the list. It felt pretty reductive of both Prometheus and the original Alien. And I really liked that. I'll get into this more later, but I liked that Prometheus was doing something different with the Alien formula, um, which felt pretty stale by Resurrection. I was kind of over it. Like, I don't know. The Alien formula, I was just kind of like, oh, can we do something else, something different? Like, I've seen Alien. I want to see something new. And I do think that Prometheus was definitely the break from that formula. I like that Prometheus wasn't just about a scary, indestructible alien creature chasing these like group of humans. It had more to say than that. It was about more like life and death and creation and why we're here, with some scary creatures thrown in there too, obviously. But Covenant felt a little bit more like a run of the mill alien movie, which is still fun and I did still enjoy, but it does kind of keep it from being better. Um, the main issue that I have with this movie is that it is pretty predictable. The whole Walter and David twist at the end was very easy to see coming. The humans acting very stupid throughout this movie, which yes is a staple of Alien, but they were acting especially stupid in this one. They didn't have to do all that. I thought that the way that they acted stupid was pretty predictable. The action was very fun in this movie, and I do think that this movie has my favorite xenomorph design. I really like the way it looks here. Sorry, this picture isn't awesome, but this is kind of the best one that I could get to see like the full alien creature. I like how it like I know that obviously in the original Alien movies, it's a guy in a suit, and the suit is very cool, and I like that a lot. But I really like that the alien in Covenant looks so alien, which I realize kind of sounds like stupid, but I really like the way that his body is. Like I like the way that how he walks and like kind of the position of his hips, and I don't know, I just think he's looked really cool. And especially this scene, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. This scene was sick as fuck. It was pretty cool. I did like that a lot. It was very fun, and I really liked all the action related to the xenomorph in this movie. Um, Another, I was really surprised by how gory this movie was, and I know this is an alien movie, but like Prometheus was pretty tame except for the abortion scene. So to have this much blood was pretty surprising. I was into it. It was very fun. It didn't like it wasn't too much for me, but it definitely stood out a bit. Like I thought it was really cool how the like chest burster, how we didn't have that because like we've seen that, which I appreciate. Thank you, Ridley Scott. I don't need to see another chest burster scene. I know what it is. But the kind of way that they twisted it a couple times in this movie was pretty cool. Have aliens come out of different places in people's bodies. That's pretty cool. I liked that. Um, I thought that was pretty fun, and I also liked the different kind of alien creatures. Like this guy here, the like pale xenomorph things, whatever they were. I thought those were pretty cool. I thought they looked cool. I thought they acted cool. I was into them. That was very fun. Um, but I do think that the best aspect of Covenant is David. I think that he is a really interesting character, and he really gets room in this movie to get fucking bonkers with it, which I really enjoyed. I loved his lab, and I loved his obsession with the xenomorphs and Shaw. Like that was pretty cool. Really wish that we had gotten to see what he did to Shaw, how he loved her, but also how he killed her. I think that would have been really interesting instead of we just kind of see the aftermath. But I wish that we had definitely gotten more with it. I think that would have been really cool to see. I like how David thinks that he is the eternal exception to the rule, because he is not human. He is more than a human could ever be. He is smarter, faster, resistant to being prey to the xenomorphs and the most powerful creatures that David has come across. I think that he also has a fascination with the engineers, but when he went to their planet and wiped them out so easily, he became pretty bored with them. The xenomorphs and their endless change and adaptation really intrigues him, and I think that's really cool. It's not that he would want that for himself, it's just that he has this deep desire to understand. To it's really cool to see his kind of progression from Prometheus to Covenant and how he really becomes like he really goes off the deep end trying to understand the xenomorphs and the perfect creature, which I think is really sick. I think for David, he became a god by understanding and controlling the understandable. That's kind of his quest. Is I think David was initially interested in the humans, but when he found out that he was quicker and faster and smarter than them and stronger, he was became bored with them very quickly. And so finding something that David feels like his it feels like David's superior, that's what really drives him to understand everything that's going on. Which makes David different from Wayland Yutani because he's in a really unique position by not being human. It's not corporate greed or anything related to money that drives David. It's more like spiritual, which feels corny, but it's not, I promise. It's really cool. It's like it feels like Ridley Scott was really inspired by corporate greed for the original Alien, and then for Prometheus and Covenant, he was really inspired by like the beyond, knowing, like finding, meeting your God, being disappointed, like trying to really understand our place in the universe and where we come from, and understanding that that is just beyond our comprehension, which is pretty cool. Like that's pretty cool, and it's an idea that I'm into, and I think that the way that David executes everything is very interesting. I think that his artificial nature really protects him from being prey to the xenomorphs, but he still falls into the same trap that Wayland Yutani does, which is cool because David thinks that he's above humanity, but he still was made by humans. So he still kind of has the same trappings. Um, his greed almost kills him in Prometheus. And I would imagine that if we got a third movie, then that would be his downfall as well, which I really wish we had gotten a third movie. It's really a bummer that we didn't. And, I really wanted to see where this would go because I think it would be really interesting. Um, the xenomorphs represent power, nature, and chaos in these movies. There's no taming something as vast as nature. And I do think that David would have learned that eventually. Overall, I liked this movie, even though I thought it was a bit weaker than Prometheus. The human characters in this movie are just very uninteresting. Like, I was just, I really could not have given less of a fuck. Like when any of them died, I really didn't care. I, you know, the most the most interesting things are the visuals. This movie looks really beautiful. David and everything that's alien on this planet. I thought that was really cool. I do kind of wish that David was the main character. I think that would have been pretty cool to see. But I still did enjoy this movie. I had a fun time with it. Um, I do really wish we'd gotten a third movie. Yeah. I just wanted to know what David would have done to those colonists. Like, the experiments he would have done would have, like, been next level fucked up, but I did kind of want to see it. I was curious. I wanted to know what he would do. Anyway, on to the next. Prometheus, which is no surprise given what I just talked about. Again, I think that Prometheus is a bit of a mixed bag. I think it's a little bit better than Covenant, but they're pretty similar. And I feel like before going into these movies, I kind of expected Covenant to be really bad because I had heard like people like Prometheus and people didn't really like Covenant, but they're honestly pretty similar. Like they're pretty similar in quality, um, and they're not perfect. Prometheus is kind of also a mixed bag, just like Covenant is. Though I'm landing, I do think I have more positive feelings about it than negative. Um, the negatives in this movie are definitely more annoying. Even like every one of these characters make really stupid decisions for no reason. Like the stupid decisions that the characters make in Covenant, you can kind of write it off as like, okay, they're all married to each other, which I was like, okay, we get it. It's like you get the married Covenant couple in Prometheus, and then Ridley Scott was like, I really like that. So then in Covenant, he made literally everybody married. There was like 5 married couples in that movie or something like that. So like you can kind of be like, okay, these characters are acting stupid, but they really love each other. So, you're gonna make stupid decisions for the people that you love. Okay, I get that. But Prometheus doesn't really have that. Like, yes, the married couple, like, they don't really make stupid decisions, honestly. Like, well, actually, they do. But much on a, like, there are other characters in this movie that make way stupider decisions than they do, and it's not really at the stake for each other. Like, they find this like alien thing, and then all of them immediately take off their helmets. Hello? That's such a bad idea. And guess what? It was a bad idea. Who'd have thought? It's like, and then there's the dude who's supposed to be a biologist finds an alien creature in a dangerous cave where he has no access to communication, no access to help, is completely lost down there. And then he finds the alien with a pile of dead bodies, dead alien bodies, and he talks to it like it's a cat and is like everything will be okay, and he's like, oh, like baby, like come here, like let me get the, like come touch me, bro. And then he got fucking murked because of course he did. Like, dude, come on. Like, that really annoyed me. And then the one scientist guy, like him, the husband who looks like Tom Hardy but isn't, he finds like a worm in his bloodshot eyes, and he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'll just go back out with the group and it'll be no big deal. Brother, oh my god. Come on. Like, and it's like Idris Elba is in this movie, and he's like the guy who like stays on the ship and kind of like directs everybody. He has access to the map or whatever. And at one point, they all get separated from like the biology guy and then the other dude who I don't remember. Um, but Idris Elba literally could not give less of a fuck than the guys who are lost. Like, bro, they are lost on an alien planet in a very dangerous cave and they cannot get out. Like, he literally did not give a fuck, which was funny, but it was a little like, oh, okay, I don't know. And then at the end of the movie, when the engineer's ship falls on Charlize, that was really stupid. People have clowned on that before. Like, she ran in a straight line when the ship is skinny as hell. She could have just turned. You know what? I don't know. I don't know. And then, the chick from the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, like, she does the same thing and she just gets lucky, which is stupid. And, it's like every time a character made a very blatantly stupid decision, that just kind of made my eyes roll. Like, I was like, oh, like, okay, it's annoying. And, like, the ending I didn't love. The ending was a bit of a mess. It had like three endings that were all kind of awkwardly mashed together. There were 2 points where I was like, okay, this is the end of the movie. And then it just kind of kept going. And the negatives of this movie mostly lead to some awkwardness, but I do think that the positives outweigh the negatives. Like, yes, there's a lot of stupid stuff in this movie, but I was really engaged about 3/4 of this movie. The stupid stuff is only about a quarter of it. So, ratios. Good outweighs the bad. Um, I really liked the way that these characters discovered the caves. I was really interested in everything surrounding the engineers. I thought that was really interesting and really engaging. And I really liked the way that it was kind of slow in their discovery of everything. This movie looks beautiful. The cinematography is stunning. It's really, really cool. And so just getting time to just sit with these characters in their exploration of everything was very cool. And I was very into that. And then, just like in Covenant, my favorite character in this movie was David. Um, I thought he was really, really cool. He's, a robot who feels scorned by the disregard of his human creators. And it almost feels like, it seems like he wants them to feel as insignificant as they have made him feel. Very cool. He wants to understand humanity's creator to better understand himself, which is really interesting. David is really the only one to find out anything meaningful about the engineers. He finds their conference room and he finds the last living one. And the chick from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the main doctor who was there, was just kind of like researching, but she kind of fumbled her way around. And David was really the only one making legitimate discoveries. Um, David definitely reminds me a lot of replicants from Blade Runner, which makes sense as they're both made by Ridley Scott. But David reminds me more of replicants than anybody else that we have seen in Alien so far. He is definitely similar to Ian Holm in the original Alien, but his desire to know, to understand, and to become more is very much like Roy Batty from Blade Runner. I think that David would have fit very well in with Roy Batty's crew. Like, I just think they're very in the same vein. And I think that's really interesting since Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies ever. And so that kind of reminder and that way to look at humanity is just really interesting. I don't know. I thought it was really cool. Ridley Scott really knows his way around making a robot. And I thought that was, I was into it. This movie almost doesn't feel like an alien movie. It almost seems to lose focus when it becomes an alien movie. This is already a xenomorphless alien movie. So you can definitely tell. I feel like this movie wasn't originally designed to be an alien movie, even though it was. I have since done research and it was designed to be an alien movie, but it just doesn't feel like it. And it feels like it became less focused when it kind of became more about like the alien that we know. I don't know. Um, I think that I really wish that I could see this movie that was a little bit more focused and one that was more interesting in the creation of horror and how our creators are just warmongers and just as destructive as us. I think that's such a cool idea, meeting your creator and finding out that they are all the worst parts of humanity. That's pretty cool. And it's just disappointment in our creators is something that's really interesting. And it's really cool that David goes through that process with humans, and then humanity goes through that same process with when they understand what the engineers were doing. You know, it feels like an extension of, everybody kind of goes through the phase where they separate themselves from their parents, and it feels like that kind of idea but on steroids. Like, I don't know. It feels like Ridley Scott was really also going through like a religious like kind of crisis when he was making this movie. Maybe I like movies like that because I also really like Angel's Egg. Like movies about these guys just kind of like realizing that their faith might not be what they think it is. And that's definitely what this movie is, and I think that's very cool. Um, it's like you expect your creator to be something so much better than you, so much further, so much more above, having none of the flaws that you do. And then they kind of encounter the engineers and they realize that they still fall prey to many human flaws, greed, violence, disgust with their creations. I think this is the first of the Alien movies to not be anti-corporate at its core and instead talk about creation, which again, I've said that before. I really like it. Um, this movie was definitely, a reinvention of the Alien. It was not really interested in the Alien formula, which I was into, as I had kind of gotten bored with it after Alien Resurrection. Um, I think that I did enjoy the um, the alien aspects of this movie though a little bit, even though I feel like it took away focus from the main story that they were going for. I really enjoyed the abortion scene. That was really fun. It was gross and just really cool. I don't know. I liked it. But again, it did feel shoehorned in because it felt like, oh, this is time for the alien part of the movie to happen. Um, though the xenomorphs being a creation of both human meddling and our creator's destructiveness, that's a cool idea. I like that a lot. Um, it's the kind of alien moments are a bit awkwardly shoehorned in, but they didn't bother me too bad. Um, and I do think that, but I know I talked about how beautiful this movie is, but I need to say again, this movie is really beautiful. This movie came out in 2012, and the CGI still looks incredible. Like it hasn't aged a day. Like this scene here, crazy. It was really beautiful. And I think that there's a shot in this that looks like it directly inspired Mad Max Fury Road, which is pretty sick, since that is a really beautiful movie as well. Um, I think that, you know, what the core ideas that this movie was going for and how beautiful it is, and generally how I kind of liked the pacing and generally where the direction of things were going, it kind of won me over. I don't know. It was just it had more elements in it that I liked. And while some of the ideas I feel like weren't implemented as well as they could have been, I still was engaged with them and I just still thought they were pretty interesting. I don't know. I had fun. Okay, next one is Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus is a very fun movie. Um, so I do think that, as we're kind of going up in the rankings here, I do think that this is a very fun movie. This has definitely some flaws, but I would say less than Prometheus. Um, I was always very entertained with this movie. I thought that the visuals were really stunning, which I said before. But when you have a movie like Alien Resurrection, which I think is pretty ugly, you gotta really highlight the beautiful ones. And I think that Alien Romulus is very beautiful. Um, I what happened? Why did it do that? Okay. Anyway, I don't know why that happened. Girl. Okay. So, I was always very entertained with this movie. I thought the visuals were really beautiful. Um, I also really liked seeing Isabella Merced like being scared all of the time. Like, and that's definitely because of all of my criticisms of The Last of Us season 2. Like, she had some of that in Last of Us 2, and I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it was really nice to see her acting as like almost more Dina like in this movie, which was pretty funny. And then obviously a lot of people have drawn comparisons to how much Kaylee Spaney looks like Ellie in this movie, and she does kind of act like Ellie in ways too. So that was fun for me, just for me personally, because I'm such a Last of Us 2 head. And I will take any opportunity to shit on season 2 of that show. Um, anyway, well, I did really enjoy this movie. It is extremely derivative of the original Alien. So I watched when I was kind of doing my marathon of these movies, I watched the original Alien. And if anybody noticed this, but new edition, Alien. Anyway, so I watched the original Alien right before this movie, which had it very fresh in my mind. So I picked up literally every similarity between the two movies like immediately. There's the Ian Holm resurrection that they have in this movie, which is always bad. I feel like that, the trend of resurrecting dead actors with CGI is not something that really anybody is into. It seems to be something that studios keep thinking about. I think it might have been less egregious if it was only really in one scene, but he just kept coming back. He was just always there, and it was really annoying. I don't know why they did that. The special effects, and he looks like a video game character, so it wasn't great. But the special effects in this movie do look really good outside of what they did to Ian Holm. I don't know why they wouldn't just use like a person for that. Like they could have used Michael Fassbender. That would have been pretty sick. But, Prometheus and Covenant aren't quite as iconic as the original Alien, so and this was basically just an alien clone, but I would have it didn't have to be like David exactly. We've already seen that there's more than one, Michael Fassbender robot because there was Walter in Covenant. Like just make it another one of those guys. That would have been cool. If you really need to do a callback to something. Um the CGI face was very distracting. Outside of that, the little references that they made throughout were fine. There were a couple cute references to Aliens and Prometheus and Covenant that were pretty fun. But the thing with this one is that its story structure is basically the same as the original Alien, so it all becomes pretty predictable. Where this movie really rocks is when it goes against the Alien formula. I really liked Andy, who's David Johnson there. It's funny that throughout all of these movies, the robot is the most interesting character. I don't know why that is the case that it is, but in literally all of these movies, except for the originals, obviously, the robot is my favorite character. Um, I really liked Andy being corrupted by Ian Holm for a little bit and then coming back to himself. I thought that was really interesting. His relationship with Rain, who's Kaylee Spaney, was really sweet. I liked that we got a break from all the married couples of late in Alien, and instead we had a sibling pair, which we had never seen before in Alien, which was very fun. I liked how he was able to best function when he was doing what was in the best interest of Weyland-Yutani. That was a fun idea to really drive home the theme that the company is everywhere and even their products cannot rebel fully. That may be the reason that he was having motor and speech issues before was because he was prioritizing Rain and not the company. I really liked the ending as well. I knew it was coming, so it didn't exactly surprise me, but I did really like its execution. Having a human alien combo is not new to the series. We've seen it in Alien Resurrection, but I think it was done much better here. I really like how he looks, how he is this horribly disfigured and long person. I also really like that he kind of looks like an engineer. He has a very similar face, which is just, I thought, really interesting. It's a fun idea that when you truly combine human and xenomorph DNA, you go back to the source code for both, which is the engineers. The goo lactation that Isabella Merced had was so gross and so weird that genuinely surprised me. I did not know that was coming, but that was pretty fun. It's still following the thing from Alien where you think you've killed the alien, but then it comes back right before you go into cryosleep. But I think that the twist on it made it just interesting enough that I had fun with this movie. I also really liked the like acid hallway scene where they turn off the gravity and all the xenomorphs are there and there's like the acid flowing around. That was a really good scene as well. I liked that. Um, Overall, this movie was good, but since I have seen the original, I do like it less. Um, but if this was my entry point into the franchise, I think this is a good place to start. If for some reason you don't want to watch the originals, I think that this was a good way to get kind of modern audiences in on board with Alien. Yeah. Okay. On to the next. Okay. Why is it doing that? Okay, there it goes. Okay. So I I originally wrote all of my reviews for everything back in August, but I didn't make this yet because I wanted Alien Earth to finish because I wanted to include it in here. So I'm everything I wrote about Alien Earth I did like a month later. So, uh, but yeah, I wanted the show to be over to be able to talk about it, and I thought that Alien Earth was really excellent. I think this was kind of cater made for me specifically because I really love a slow burn. I'm really into one. We don't even get a lot of answers this season, which is something that I really liked. I was under the impression that this was going to be a mini series, so when the show ended in the way that it did, I was very excited. It's really cool to have a show be confident enough in itself to not solve everything in its first season because it isn't sure if it'll get another one, which leads to then shows being worse overall. Alien Earth really took what made Alien great, a corporate greed and a xenomorph, and really cranked everything up. I really liked the new characters that we were exposed to. They definitely fit along with the Alien franchise has to give us in terms of creatures. Um, Always smart and violent. I really like that instead of just having a xenomorph, we have something else. We have several other things, which is very cool. Um, the eye, the eye octopus guy, very cool. I liked him a lot. Such a very cool and unique creature. And I love the dread that it created when it was in sheep form. It was silent and menacing and it just stared. And it was so cool. That is one thing that I think that the show did really well is dread. It makes you afraid again, which I really liked. It has that episode, which is basically a recreation of the original Alien, but I thought it was done really well, and it was something that I really enjoyed. I really liked seeing because yes, the people were stupid in that episode because they have to be because this is Alien and everyone has to be stupid. But I really liked the way that it was done. It felt because you have the new creatures, it felt like kind of a new layer of dread was added onto everything because you know, it's very stressful when you see like the tadpoles in the water bottle. Oh, that was so stressful. And she's just carrying it around, and you're like, oh my God, what is she gonna drink it? Oh my God. And then it doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to. And then the dude is puking up blood. You're like, oh my God. So I really liked that it kind of twisted. It wasn't exactly an alien clone because we had these new levels of dread to everything, and I thought that was really fun. Um, I will say that this isn't necessarily my favorite xenomorph design, because it's very obviously a guy in a suit. He's very upright. And I do really appreciate the show's commitment to practical effects. I think it looks great. But I will say he does just kind of stand and walk like a guy, um, which I don't know. But other than that, I think the special effects were really, really great. Um, I do like the other practical effects that were used, and I also like the CGI here. I thought it was done very well. I also really liked the characters. I feel like the characters are really a highlight here, which coming from I did really like Rain and Andy in Romulus. I didn't really care too much about everyone else. I liked Isabella Merced because of how much she reminded me of Dina, but that's kind of my own thing bringing that into this. I really was not invested in any of the humans in Prometheus and Covenant. So it was really nice to have these like cast of humans in quotations, they're not all humans. But maybe that's why I liked it, actually. Now that I'm saying it out loud, they're all robots. Maybe that's why I liked it. Because the strongest part of every alien movie are from the more modern alien movies, Covenant, Prometheus, and Romulus, has been the robot. So maybe that's why I liked this one is because it's all robots. um, but I did really like the human characters too. I really liked Boy Cavalier. I thought that the brother, I don't remember his name. I just called him Nemec because that was his name in Andor. I really liked Nemec here. I thought he was really interesting. And Boy Cavalier, I also really liked. I'm really glad that Boy Cavalier, sorry, spoilers, but I'm really glad that Boy Cavalier didn't die in this season. I'm really excited to see what else he's going to do because I love how all the kids just like totally tore him down, like took him down a peg. And that is like, the weakest he has ever felt. And I just thought that was so cool. I really liked that. I really like how the season ended. Very curious to see where else it'll go. I really hope it gets a season two. I know that Noah Hawley said that they were talking to FX about getting a season two, so I really hope that happens soon. At the time of me making this, it's been not even a week since the show finished. So I, we've got a little bit of time, but I really hope it happens soon, please. I need more of this show. It was really good. Um, but okay, anyway, back to what I was talking about. So the characters are really good. And I think that Wendy, or slash Marcy, I thought she was a real highlight. I hate her hair. I know. I just need to point that out. Her bangs are so tiny. We didn't need to do that. We didn't need. She could have had regular bangs. And I know that's the actress, and the actress has that hair. I don't know why she does that. The mini bangs are just not a good look. I wish she had regular bangs. Anyway, the character herself was actually really, really cool, and I liked her a lot. I really liked seeing her arc this season. As she grows more powerful, she becomes less confident in who she is and her place in the world. She's kind of like a god who is lost in her own domain, and I think that is a really interesting idea because she is still a child. And she's just been given like this godlike ability. Like she controls everything in the facility and she controls the xenomorphs. And, like that power is just something that she's having a really hard time navigating, which is very interesting. And I really hope there's definitely a lot of room to take her character in a hopeful season 2. I really hope they do that. I really like her relationship with the other Lost Boys, the other robots, being both similar to them and not, since her brother is there, because she's kind of allowed to keep something from her old life, whereas the rest of them aren't. But when it comes down to it, they are the only people who really understand her. So, and her position and what it is like to be a child, and now you're in a robot body and you're forced to grow up and you're suddenly given all this power and everything. So she does still like them and want to, be with them, even though it's, it's she's not quite the same as everybody else. I also really like how unhinged she became this season as it went on more, becoming more and more comfortable with reclaiming her own power and just killing a lot of people. That was really fun. And also, I really liked Kirsch. I thought Kirsch was really interesting. How he is a robot. He's, obviously just straight up a robot. And how he kind of navigated everything that went on with the Lost Boys and Arthur. That was pretty cool. I really liked him. He was very smart. And then also, I just to kind of go back to Boy Cavalier for a second, he is someone who's so confident in his own intellect, but completely bogged down by immaturity. He yearns to have a conversation with an equal, so he creates smarter and smarter robots, but he is still so bored. Not because he's any smarter, but because he literally gets bored constantly and nothing grabs his attention, quite like the aliens. There's something completely new to him, and he's really hungry for something new. He just has to completely disregard everyone's safety around him, and he just cannot be bored anymore. And I really like how he has made the others complicit. Dave and Sylvia, who's the scientist who wants the best for the children but will listen to Boy Cavalier's unethical demands. I like how the show shows the part of corporate greed that the original never touched on. Yes, the company demands everything and will throw you aside at the drop of a hat, but you will also have to do bad things in the names of following orders from a boss who is stupider than you. Boy Cavalier knows computers, and throughout the whole show, you were constantly shown how reckless, impulsive, and dumb he is. Which, yes, he knows computers, he can make robots, and that's really impressive, but he, you know, is not someone that when he's talking, you feel like he's very smart. It wasn't until the last episode when he talks about kind of his past a little bit that I even believed that he could have been the one to create these robots. Like, he just feels so immature that it's just hard to understand that he would be someone who could create robots like this. Um, but what I really liked about the show that I feel like is different from the other aliens is that it makes people realistically stupid. The children are, the main characters, and they're all children. So that lends itself to not making the most rational, smart decisions. Um, you know, like, and it's also a lot of conflict as the children try to act as grown-ups. And it's like you have Boy Cavalier, who is impulsive and immature, but as a man who never understood childhood. And then you have the children who are desperately trying to act like adults and have no idea how to do that. I also really like how the adults are always underestimating the children because of the fact that the children are products for Prodigy to sell. Everyone tries to manipulate them as much as possible, and it definitely works to some degree. But by the end of the season, they all have become something more. Wendy, especially since she has access to literally everything in the facility, none of them are the same as when the show first started, but they haven't quite come of age yet, and I think that's really cool. I think that there's a lot of really interesting sci-fi that takes elements from Alien that makes it great, and then it makes it something different. I did really enjoy the episode. Again, that was basically just the original Alien. But I feel like the show, the thing that makes the show so special and why I like it so much is that it's so different from Alien and that it's taking things that are identifiably alien but making it something new. And I really like that. Um, I think every episode of the show I was really engaged with. I was really entertained and locked in whenever an episode was airing. I really like the length of it as it gave us an opportunity to really get to know all the characters and to really sit with the ideas that the show is presenting us. Um, I've also seen people complain that these characters act stupid, which I just don't understand because I think that the characters are realistically stupid. Again, I've seen complaints about it, and people are like, "The characters are stupid." I'm like, "Have you never seen an alien movie before? Like, watch Prometheus and Covenant, and then come back to me and tell me these characters are acting stupid. Like, come on, be serious." I am always curious about new directions that this franchise can go in, and I really like this new direction. Right now, I have it placed at number 3, but I honestly feel like it could go up like when the show is actually finished. Because if we get more and it keeps going on the trajectory that it's going on, like I'm gonna be very happy. I think that the show is really fresh and new, which is really nice after Romulus was just rehashing. Um, so I really like that we are actually taking Alien in a new direction. I really want more. Please give us season 2, please. Okay. Number 2 is Aliens. Aliens really absolutely rips. This movie is very cool. um, I had been watching some of the classic James Cameron movies. So I watched, like I said earlier, I watched Terminator 1 and 2. That and kind of the fact that I had watched Predator um, made me watch Aliens. This was kind of the first movie that I watched in the marathon because I had already seen the original. Uh, but um, Aliens is just, it's very fun. It reminds me a lot of Terminator, which makes sense in its use of crazy practical effects and general mood, which makes sense, obviously. And then I was also getting some Predator in here. In the original Predator, you have these super macho guys who all don't know what they are getting into. These hunters were at the top of their game, and their masculine confidence is slowly stripped away when they realize they are outclassed by something else. You have the Marines in the beginning of this movie acting very stereotypical and what you'd expect, joking around, doing pull ups, smoking, doing knife gags, all super masculine. None of them taking Ripley serious when she warns them about the xenomorphs and what they can do. But as soon as they actually encounter the whole nest of xenomorphs, and a lot of the group dies, all that bravado is stripped away very quickly. They are meatheads, but they are endearing, so you don't want them to die. Bill Paxton just flips the fuck out for the rest of the movie after they encounter these xenomorphs, which was very funny. I liked Ripley's development to a kind of mother figure to Newt. I thought that was very cute. The practical effects were insane. I always have been wowed by some of the shit that they would do when I watched this movie. Very goopy, just like alien movies should be. The story was fun. I am notoriously not always a fan of James Cameron's dialogue, as I think Avatar has some of the dumbest dialogue ever. Okay, not ever, but the dialogue is really dumb in the two Avatar movies. But I think that the campiness really works here. It's fun and over the top, but it helps drive home everything that we're doing here. Old Jimmy is at his best when he's being over the top, kind of deliberately so. And I guess Avatar is too, but I just was not into it in Avatar. Also, when I watched this movie, it took me way too long to realize that Hicks is from Terminator 1. I was like, wow, that guy looks really familiar. And in my defense, he was wearing a lot of gear in this movie, so I didn't fully recognize him. It took me until like halfway through the movie before I was like, oh my God, it's the guy from Terminator. um, and this one is definitely more action than horror, which I generally I am into. Um, but yeah, this movie was really fun. I really liked the alien queen. She was really cool. Um, like this movie is also kind of silly. Like, yes, the xenomorph does use the elevator. That's funny. Like it's I don't know. I was into it. I thought it was really funny. But I do think that this movie what works really well for this movie is the pacing. I think that this movie is really paced very well. And I was really into all that. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I don't know. This is just a really classic movie for a reason. I really liked it a lot. But okay, now to onto my number one favorite alien movie, which is Alien. I think this is kind of most people's favorite. It's I really go back and forth on if Alien or Aliens is my favorite. Like, ask me tomorrow and I might tell you a different answer. But both of these movies are really close, very similar. I've liked both of these movies a lot, and I was kind of splitting hairs trying to decide which one I liked better. But I do really, really like the original Alien. So I rewatched this movie for this, and I had not seen it in probably 4 or 5 years. And like I really liked this movie. I really liked it a lot. What really stood out to me this time around is how well designed everything is. The sets look insanely cool, and everything just has so much attention to detail. It's amazing. What I also really liked this time around was knowing that Ash was a robot and that his goal was to get the xenomorph inside the ship and bring it to Earth. It's really cool to watch him play chess with the members of the crew, knowing what his ultimate goal is. I also thought it was really cool to watch this movie after having seen Prometheus and Covenant, knowing what David stood for and how well Ash follows in his footsteps. How Ash was ordered to bring the alien back, but that he is completely fascinated with it. How the more he learns about it, the less subtle his obsession becomes. Another thing I really liked about this movie was its patience. It is a pretty slow burn, which, as I stated before, I really like, and I think it's really effective here. It really takes its time setting everything up. Even in a Chestburster, I had forgotten how slow the initial scene went. Just because any sequel can't have that surprise shock factor anymore, nobody does it slow until Alien Earth, which I really enjoyed because it was surprising. And I still, you still know it's going to happen, but you're not sure when or how. That was pretty fun. But, you can't really have the same shock factor anymore because you know what's going to happen. Um, but I did also like the chest burster and Romulus. I thought that was kind of a fun twist on it so that you could like see what was happening through her like bones. That was cool. Anyway, I really liked how the chest burster scene was done here. How Kane just kind of sat there for a long time while the face hugger like impregnated him. I really liked seeing the engineer ship too after knowing what everything means about that. The design of all of that is just really fantastic. Also really liked how there was almost no soundtrack. It made everything feel a lot more real and more scary. This was a lot better than I thought or than I remembered it being, and is all around a very good movie. The corporate greed is obviously a major theme here. That's where it all originated from. It's a core theme for every Alien movie, so obviously the first movie has it there quite a bit. I really like how Weyland-Yutani plainly lays out how the crew is expendable and how the creature is the top priority. They don't usually sugarcoat their goals and they know exactly what they're doing. And obviously, the psychosexual imagery is really interesting. The rape imagery, which I talked before about when I talked about Alien 3. Um, and it's obviously used very effectively here. Um, that theme is not really in any subsequent movies because it's so hard to replicate. It feels like the things that work really well for Alien work really well because it's something that you don't see coming, like the chest burster and all of the sexual imagery. Works really well because nobody's seen it before, which is why Aliens had to go in a completely different direction, which I enjoyed. But it does mean that the Alien franchise is kind of not totally like consistent, which is fine, but it is pretty funny, or like it is, a little bit that each it's like it's both a positive and a negative that each movie feels like its own thing. which I do generally prefer over than something sacrificing a good story for the sake of continuity. I will always prefer something that is good on its own, even if it makes the whole picture more disjointed. So I really like everything that is done in this movie. It's a classic for a reason. It's really, really well done. I really like the cat, obviously. It's just a really good movie. I don't know. It's kind of hard to talk about because it's just really good. It's just a good movie. I don't know. It's a movie I really, really like. It's very good. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the Alien versus Predator movies. Okay. Alien versus Predator Requiem is such a bad movie. It's hard to talk about how bad this movie is because it's hard for me to describe how bad this movie is. It's really ugly. I need to say that up front, which is why, bam, look at this big ass picture that I used and look at how ugly it is. So much of this movie takes place at night and you cannot fucking tell what is happening at all. I don't know. Again, this came out in 2007. So that's just, that was not the prettiest time for movies ever. But we still had some beautiful movies that were coming out in 2007. Wasn't that No Country for Old Men? That's a beautiful movie. Different beast, obviously. But we can light some night scenes. The Battle of Helm's Deep happened in 2002. We know how to light night scenes now. Why the fuck does it look like this? I can't tell who is. Like, the only reason I know that that's the xenomorph and that's the predator is because of the tail. Come on, guys. And this isn't just a bad scene that I picked out. Like, I got some other ones down here, like, yes, this one is lit better, and the hospital scene is lit better. Like, you have this one here, ugly. It just doesn't look very good. This one here, ugly. There's a lot that, like, happens at night in this movie. It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell what's going on. Anyway, this movie leaves very little impression. I watched it and then I immediately wrote down what I thought about it, and I was having a hard time remembering what I had just watched. It's like I the thing about this movie is that it's basically just a slasher, and that's so boring. That's not fun. I don't like that. A slasher that's just like it's just boring. It's like it takes everything away from the mythology or who the xenomorphs or predators are as creatures and is just throwing them in to kill as many people as possible. And that's just boring. I don't like that. That's not fun. um, I mean, I can kind of appreciate how this movie spares nobody. Not children, not pregnant women. Boy, howdy, do those people fucking die. Which I gotta kind of tip my hat to. Like, you know what? You're committed. You're certainly committed. But it's just so cliche. This is like the most cliche movie ever. There is not a single thing other than the pregnant ladies, because that is the xenomorph in the in the labor and delivery unit of a hospital. And this woman, like, her stomach rips open and then like she has like six xenomorphs in there. Like, that was pretty fun, I guess. But like this movie was so boring. So boring. I was already having a bad day when I watched this movie, and then I turned this on, and I was hoping for something stupid and fun, and it was not. It's boring. Don't watch this movie. Seriously, it's not even like in a fun bad way. We've got fun bad coming up, so you don't need to watch this one. I promise. It's just not very good. It's like it's the alien doesn't. There's nothing connected to Alien at all, and there's nothing connected to Predator at all. So like, what are we doing here? If those are just two creatures that like don't do anything and they're just kind of there and they just kill people and that's it, boring. I did not like this movie at all. Anyway, on to my favorite Alien versus Predator movie, which there's only two, so competition is real tight. Is the original Alien versus Predator from 2004. This movie was like, I don't know, it was really dumb, but also very fun. Like, this is a movie that is not trying to be serious on any level whatsoever. it is definitely trying to be like schlocky fun, which I can get down with. Like I can get down with some dumb fun. And this movie does kind of waste time by introducing us to a bunch of human characters in the beginning just for them to be cannon fodder for the rest of the movie, which was pretty funny. And before you say that is the Sophia, that is the formula for every single alien movie, you would be correct. But these deaths are so unceremonious that it just feels like it should be with guys with no lines. Like that was pretty funny. The practical effects for the xenomorph and the predator do look pretty good in this movie, especially given that it's 2004. I really like the crisscross xenomorph. He was pretty cool. I like the way the predators looked. That was fun. And I also really like how this movie fleshed out a lot of the predator mythology, because by this point, by 2004, we hadn't really gotten a whole lot. Well, we had gotten some of the mythology in like Predator 2, but we didn't really have a whole lot of it, and so it was really fun how we kind of fleshed out a lot of the mythology here. I thought that it was interesting. Um, I think it was really cool that they came to Earth to like breed the ultimate prey for them to hunt, and then they made the xenomorph. Like, you know what, guys? You're correct because the xenomorph is actually like the ultimate living creature. So if you want to hunt like the top creature, then those guys are the ones to pick. Um, I was finding myself being more Team Alien than Team Predator. And I wish that the Xenomorphs had kind of like put up a better showing than they did, but like, whatever. It's fine. Paul S. W. S. Paul, whatever his initials are in the middle, and then Anderson. He's very clearly Team Predator, which is fine. Whatever. I wish the aliens had a better showing, but whatever. Um, I, I feel like at this point I had already seen Prey and Killer of Killers, so I was definitely spoiled by Dan Trachtenberg and like everything that he does with the Predators. So I really wish that he would make an Alien vs Predator movie because I think that would be sick as fuck. But whatever. Um, I the thing that I was the last thing I was expecting in this movie was sexual tension between the predator and the human woman. I gotta say, that was not high on what I thought was gonna happen in this movie, but semi flirtatious looks and like she was into him. She was into him. And I know a lot of people are into the predators. I got a lot of the TikTok edits. Believe me, I know how much so many of you want to fuck Predator. That's fine. I get that. That's cool. But it's a little bit different to see it actually happen in the movie. And a lot of people are really into this Predator because they're like, oh, he's so hot, and like, oh my god, he's protecting her, and like, oh my god, and like, that's fun, and like, it was, it was still pretty surprising. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. It was funny, but I don't know. It was a little weird. Um, the one thing that surprised another thing like that surprised me a lot when I was watching this movie was how similar it is to Prometheus, which like, huh. I wonder if Ridley Scott watched this movie and was like, I could probably do that. But when confronted with his own mortality, Mr. Wayland, pictured over here, himself assembles a team to learn more about our history, wanting to make an impression on the world before he dies. He assembles a team to go on a mission. On their mission, they find a labyrinth of caves where they eventually stumble upon eggs of unknown origin causing an alien infestation. Like, that is exactly what happens in Prometheus. Like, Guy Pearce is dying, and so he assembles a team to try to, like, help him make a better impact, like to really solidify his legacy, to because he wants to know his creator, because he doesn't want to die. And then he assembles a team and they go out and they find the alien stuff. So that was like the core beats of it, at least the setup, very similar. So I was wondering if Ridley Scott was like, hold on, like write that down, like the SpongeBob meme, and he's like, write that down, write that down. I don't know, but I don't think anybody goes into an Alien versus Predator movie just expecting a genuine masterpiece or any kind of real movie. But I will say that this delivered on what it set out to do, and it was very fun. I had a fun time with it. Um, Hello. Okay, now on to the Predator movies. Um, so if you have seen the Predator movies, then obviously the Predator from 2018, which by the way, I hate the naming convention. I hate the titles of so many of the Predator movies because it's the same title. Why? Like, you got Predator, Predators, and the Predator. Come on, guys. That, why the hell the Predator? I did not like this movie. The Predator from 2018 is the worst Predator movie, and it's not even close. It is, I cannot emphasize enough how not close it is. Like, it's just, it's so not even close, it's not even funny. Anyway, The Predator is genuinely one of the dumbest movies I have ever seen in my life, and I mean that positively. This is such a good, bad movie. It's genuinely one of my favorite bad movies I have ever seen. And I cannot overstate how stupid this movie is. The dialogue, next level bad. Feeling it feels almost like a parody at times. And I honestly wish this movie was a parody because it's so close to being a parody. It's almost there. It skirts the line a lot, and I wish I had committed to it because this movie is really funny. The written jokes were not very funny. Like, Keegan Michael Key is not very funny in this movie, and he's supposed to be. And like the jokes that they have written like between the crew of people is not very funny. That's not very funny. What is funny is the physical comedy. Like, it's there's definitely a lot of this movie that's supposed to be comedic. You obviously don't cast Keegan Michael Key in your movie if you're trying to not have a bit of a comedic movie. But it is, oh, this is so funny. It's so funny. Like, Olivia Munn is so funny in this movie. She does like nonsense genome sequencing in a camper van under a microscope while drinking a beer in one hand, and she's drinking it the whole time while she's like, "Yeah, this is what the DNA looks like." Oh, that is so stupid. I love it. Olivia Munn also gets naked for less than zero reason. I literally cannot emphasize enough how there was no reason for her to get naked. They just wanted to see Olivia Munn naked. But like, you don't see anything because she's like kind of hunched over in a ball. So I'm like, what was the point of her getting naked? Like, what? It was really stupid and also really funny. The main guy who's pictured here, I don't remember his name at all. He's the villain in Logan, and that's just kind of what I thought of him as the whole movie. He finds a really bizarre piece of alien technology. So like the Predator like crash lands, like the ship crash lands on Earth, and then him and his like military buddies, or not buddies, I guess he doesn't like them, but him and his like military crew or whatever like find the ship, and then they're like, what is this, what is going on? And then he finds this like piece, this like crazy piece of alien technology, and then he like puts it in a shot glass with liquor and then drinks it. It's a ball, it's a metal ball, and he just drinks it, and it doesn't do anything. It literally doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It does like two things, and then I completely forgot that he'd even done that for like the rest of the movie. It was really stupid. This movie also has genuinely some of the worst autism representation I have ever seen. The kid, Jacob Tremblay, oh my god, it's not his fault. He was a kid. He was just reading what was written. But oh my god, the writing for him was so bad. It was so bad. It was really bad. There's a sign there's a sign outside of the school that Jacob Tremblay goes to, and it's like, oh, it abbreviates student to STD. I was like, this is so funny. This is so funny. This has to be a joke. And it wasn't. Okay, anyway, they say at one point that Olivia Munn practically wrote the book on evolutionary biology, which made me laugh so hard because we have we forgotten Charles Darwin, only one of the most famous scientists ever to exist ever. And Olivia Munn wrote the book on evolutionary biology. Okay. Okay. And then the reason why she's even like called when the predator comes is so fucking stupid and funny that like I it's I can't even she wrote the book on evolutionary biology. Cool. So then they're like, hey, this predator landed. We don't know what it is, so let's call it an evolutionary biologist. I don't know why evolutionary biology is what they would need and not just a biologist, but whatever. And she says that the reason that she was called was because she wrote a letter to the president when she was 6 and asked that if there were any alien creatures that ever landed on Earth that she wanted to be called. And she said that when the predator landed, they cross referenced her work, her genuine scientific research, with the letter she sent the president when she was 6. And that's what gave her access to the super, super secret, top secret, underground, super secret lab with the predator in it. Oh my God. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid. And it was so funny. And I was laughing. I watched this movie by myself and I was laughing the whole time. Like, it's just like you there's no way that you could have written that reason for Olivia Munn to have access to the super super top secret predator and not think that all of this is like a complete joke and that you're writing a parody movie. Cuz like it was so funny. The way that these characters think and the logic that these characters follow is just such a joke, which is why I wish this movie leaned into it more. Like the first, I don't know, hour of this movie, hilarious. Peak comedy, so funny. And then the action starts and they start following the predator. And then that's when I kind of checked out. I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. Like, the characters just action, this is boring. I want stupid, crazy shit. I want just completely over the top, bonkers, batshit crazy, nutso shit. And that's not what was happening. So, for a chunk of that movie, which kind of sucked, when the characters were just kind of fighting the predator. But there was also some really funny shit that happened at the end of the movie. Like the admittedly suicidal character, like he has like a scar on his head from like a suicide attempt or whatever. He looks at the predator's engine on the ship with glee, with pure glee, before he chucks himself into the engine and liquefies himself. It is so funny. It's so funny. You have to just see it. I mean, there's nothing. Oh my God, this movie is so funny. It's like I really think that this is up there with like some of the best bad movies that I've seen, like Swordfish and Replicants. Oh man, you gotta get a group of friends together. You gotta drink throughout this whole movie, and you will have a blast. I promise. It is. This is. It's so funny. It's so funny, and this is absolutely the worst Predator movie by a long shot. But what's really funny is that Alien Four: Resurrection, Alien is the fourth movie, is the worst Alien movie, and this is the fourth Predator movie, and it is also the worst. So it's really funny that neither franchise can figure out how to do a fourth movie. Don't know why that's the case. But anyway, on to the next. The fifth movie in the Predator franchise is Predator 2. So we're doing a real big jump in quality. Real big jump in quality between these two movies. Again, this is another movie I gave 3 stars. I don't know why I gave a bunch of 3 star out, but this is a 3 star movie, and The Predator I gave like 1.5. But again, it's so hard because if it was a comedy, it would be so funny. It's not, so whatever. But anyway, Predator 2, I had really low expectations for when I went into it, and I actually liked it. It was a lot more fun than I was expecting. I knew that this one didn't get as good of reviews as the original, so I was apprehensive going into it, but I actually had a pretty good time. I would definitely say that this is not as good as the original. You know, that's kind of everybody says that, and everybody is right. I thought that it was initially pretty goofy, but setting this in the midst of gang wars in LA was actually a good idea. Like when you hear that premise, you're like, that's pretty stupid. Like, why is the Predator? He was in the jungle and now he's like fighting gang wars in LA. That's pretty stupid. But it had pretty good buildup. The gang wars were over the top, which definitely fit the mood of the movie. It felt very much like an 80s cop movie, which I have been known to enjoy. I had no idea that Danny Glover was the main character in this movie, which I really liked. I had seen Witness like not maybe a month before this movie, so it was definitely giving me Witness vibes in a sense. So that was fun. I liked that a lot. I think Danny Glover does a very good job in this movie. He really encapsulates the whole like stressed out detective thing. I also cannot believe that Bill Paxton is in Aliens, Alien 2, and also Predator 2. Like, whew, that's such a strange coincidence. Um, He's really locked into sequels. This one was just fun. I don't know. I had a good time watching it. I liked seeing how the cops and the FBI would react to something like this, in our country. It really, it definitely criticized the secrecy that the FBI has around all this, and the movie really makes the FBI look like idiots. Watching this movie made me realize that I think that the Predator, or at least in the first two Predator movies, because that the theme doesn't really continue. Well, kind of in the third, but anyway, I think that Predator is America's Godzilla. Godzilla represents Japan's guilt and fear for World War II and the nuclear bombs, giving the characters a chance to overcome the hardships that they experienced over the war. At least I'm not an expert on Godzilla. I have only seen Godzilla minus one, but that's kind of the main theme that Godzilla represents in that movie. And I know that kind of draws back to the original Godzilla. So, Godzilla represents complete destruction. The Predator represents America's anxiety in a very similar kind of parallel way. The first movie criticized the CIA's actions in Central and South America under Reagan. This seems to turn that same lens towards drug and gang violence. America is known for its violence, its need for control, and its need to conquer. The Predator encapsulates those ideas. When there are times of great systemic violence, the Predator will be there, giving the people of America the ability to forget about their daily interactions with death and turn their focus on the embodiment of violence itself. The Predator functions like almost like a devil from Chainsaw Man in these last two movies. Like, he is the violence devil. The Predator gives Americans the ability to fight against the very concept that turned LA into a war zone in the first place. And I think that's pretty cool, honestly. Like, it's like the Predator is both Predator movies are really there to like give people an outlet to express, like, to fight against the violence that plagued a lot of the 80s, which was the shit that Reagan was doing with the CIA in Central and South America, and also the drug war, what Reagan was doing with the drugs. Just say no drugs was obviously very famously not effective. And there was a lot of gang culture and gang violence in LA at the time, that really escalated up until the 90s when the sudden drop off, which or not sudden, but the gang violence and the drug violence kind of petered off a little bit to be not quite as crazy as it was back then. New York definitely had a lot of that at the time. And I think that's what a lot of people think about when they think about like the drug epidemic of the 80s and early 90s. Cocaine and all that, like people really think about New York. But I had never really seen a movie that talked about LA and LA's connection to all that and the way that the gang wars were in LA. And obviously, this movie really takes the idea of the gang wars and really like cranks it up. Like, obviously, I don't think the gangs were actually doing some of the shit that they were doing in this movie. But it definitely, it's really interesting that the two Predator movies really allowed for the characters that were so plagued by these systemic issues that were created by Reagan. So, two kind of anti-Reagan movies. But now we just need Predator 3 against the AIDS crisis. That would be really funny. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of my thesis statement about the first two Predator movies. I obviously will talk about Predator 1 later, but I think that Predator 2 is a lot more interesting than people give it credit for. And it was a lot more fun. And it was just fun. I don't know. I had a good time with this movie. Okay. Why is it doing that? Hello. Okay. So my fourth movie for the Predator franchise is Predators, which again, kid, I hate the titles of these movies. um, so Predators does not get very good reviews, but I was actually really pleasantly surprised when I watched it. People's main complaints are that Adrian Brody was miscast, which I actually disagree with. I think he does a pretty good job in this movie, at seeming like someone who's very precise and dangerous, someone who really likes violence but hasn't fully given himself over to his violent tendencies like some of the other people in this movie have. Um, he has violence within him like everyone else, but it's not fully taken over. And I thought that was pretty cool. People's other main complaint about this movie is that when Lawrence Fishburne shows up, the pacing really comes to a halt, which again, I disagree with. I thought it was really cool to see something that was something like that, the Predators, seeing a person in this situation that the Predators had made, and how someone would react to being in a situation like this for a really long time, and how someone could be corrupted and lose themselves when they're surrounded by this kind of like death and high survivability, or like very high chance of death, and you have to really focus on survival all the time. I think it really worked for me. And another thing that I really liked about Lawrence Fishburne is that this movie is very obviously inspired by very classic stories like Heart of Darkness and World's Most Dangerous Game, and or Most Dangerous Game, not World's. Sorry, Most Dangerous Game. And I think that Lawrence Fishburne really is the Heart of Darkness aspect of this movie. He's definitely like the Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now kind of character. And I don't know, I thought it was cool. Like, it's really interesting. I don't know, these Predator movies, I feel like are more interesting than people give them credit for and have more ideas going on within them than people would really expect. Because when you see the Predator movies, you're like, these kind of movies are kind of stupid. But they kind of have more going on than you would think. But, this movie was very inspired by classic stories, which is really interesting. And I think that its take on violence is something that's a little bit more nuanced than you would expect. And I think that Lawrence Fishburne really shows those ideas. How it's really a point for Adrian Brody because, so this movie is about all these very violent people that are kidnapped by predators and taken to the predator planet so that the predators can hunt them. And the whole movie, Adrian Brody is really torn over if he stays with the group or if he goes off by himself. He's kind of trying to calculate his best chance of survival. And what's really cool is how he's like, here's what I would do. If I was in this situation, I was hunting us, this is what I would do. And he turns out to be right a lot of the time. And that's like the same thing that the Predators are doing, which is pretty cool, honestly. And I was into that. But the thing with Lawrence Fishburne is that that's really a turning point for him in deciding if he's really all in with these people, if he's really going to try to make this work, or if he really is going to go off by himself. And Lawrence Fishburne really shows him what being alone in this kind of situation would do to him, and how being alone is not always the best strategy, and how being alone is all consuming, and that it's not something, especially in this kind of situation, it's not like, he has anybody else to talk to. And I think that was really him like opening himself up to others, which was really cool. I don't know. I liked it. This movie is definitely a very slow burn, which again I'm into. This movie is very similar to the episode of Clone Wars where the season 3 finale, or the 2 episodes in the season 3 finale, where Ahsoka is taken prisoner by the Bossk people. Sorry, I don't remember what they're called. Sue me. Take my Star Wars card. I don't remember what the race of lizard people are called. Sorry. So this movie was so similar, in fact, to those Clone Wars episodes that I wondered if Clone Wars was inspired by this movie or this movie inspired by Clone Wars or vice versa. And I looked it up, and this movie came out in 2010, and those episodes of Clone Wars came out in 2011. Those episodes were the finale of season 3, and season 3 started airing basically at the same time that this movie came out. And so there's no way that, Dave Filoni saw Predators and then kind of created the Clone Wars episodes. I feel like both Predators and Clone Wars are probably just inspired by Most Dangerous Game and Heart of Darkness in a way, which makes sense. Those are 2 very classic stories. But it's just really funny that both of those things basically came out at the same exact time, and both of them were inspired by the same stories. I wonder if there was anything else going on. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there was any kind of like, I'm like racking my brain. What happened in 2010? I don't know. Nothing big, I don't think. But like, what would inspire people to really take interest in Heart of Darkness? Maybe everyone was watching Apocalypse Now. I don't know. But there's no way that they were like, and either one was inspired by each other. But it is really similar to each other, which is very funny. And as a certified Clone Wars head, I enjoyed that. um, and so the cast of this movie is shockingly stacked, and I have a picture of basically everybody here. But you have Adrian Brody, Walton Goggins, Lawrence Fishburne, Mahershala Ali, Topher Grace, and Danny Trejo, which is crazy. I was not expecting this many Oscar winners to be in this movie. Like, that's kind of crazy. And everyone is also doing a very good job. I thought that everyone did really good. And I will say that the downside of this movie is that the dialogue can be dumb at times, but it's not all the time. So I was able to kind of get over it. The action is pretty fun in this movie. I like the dynamic between all the characters. Um, and this movie probably has, it doesn't have a ton of focus on the actual predators, which I was okay with. Um, we've got some flavor kind of going on because you have the like blood war, which I kind of wish was like elaborated on a little bit more, but whatever, it's okay. I don't know. A lot of people really dislike this one, but I didn't. I thought it was pretty fun. The thing that does drag this movie down, though, is the dialogue, and I haven't really talked about it that much because I do like this movie, but the dialogue is pretty dumb at times. It's very on the nose. It's not super subtle. People are just kind of saying what's happening, which isn't great, but I don't know. It wasn't too bad. We're not like the Predator levels of dumb. I don't know if any movie can reach that level of dumb. Maybe I just haven't watched enough bad movies. But the dialogue in this movie does kind of drag it down a little bit, which is why it's placed here. But I think that if you buy what this movie is selling, then you're going to have a good time. And I liked it. I thought it was good. Okay, third movie is the original Predator movie. Predator was genuinely very surprising for me. I when I went into it, I was kind of just expecting something stupid, and it wasn't. It's definitely a classic movie for a reason, and I liked it a lot. I watched it initially about 3 months ago, 4 now, but for this, so I kind of rewatched a bunch of them, and I didn't. This was the only one I didn't rewatch. Well, I didn't rewatch Killer of Killers, but that's because I watched it so recently. But I didn't um, rewatch this one for this just because I was like, I know what happens. But one thing that surprised me about this movie is the pacing of everything and how patient it is. Like the original Alien, this movie really takes its time setting up all the characters and the situation that they're in before everything starts kind of falling apart. Um, the one thing that hasn't aged very well in this movie is the CGI. The Predator has a lot of like CGI when he's kind of invisible, and that made me laugh. Like it really did not age very well. However, this is a movie from 1987, so I will cut it some slack. If the CGI isn't great, then that's fine. If I watched this in 1987, I would have had my mind blown. So that's kind of what I, take it as. So again, this movie is a criticism of the CIA's tactics in Central and South America, which I was not expecting. Like, what the? Why did it do it again? It hasn't done that before. Anyway, so I really liked how it was a criticism for everything that was going on at the time in that the CIA was doing in Central and South America. Like, you know, they're there on a mission to try to like rescue hostages, and Dutch, who's Arnold Schwarzenegger, is very much adamant that his crew is not an assassination crew. They're not there to kill people. They are all, he's like the top of the top, and he gets to pick his guys, and they get to do what they want because he is the top of the top, and he's not interested in anything. He's really only interested in saving people. And so he gets tricked into this by Carl Weathers to kind of, he thinks it's they're rescuing hostages, but then that's not what it ends up being. And he's very upset about that. But that's like the first, like, I don't know, half hour of this movie is all dedicated to like shit like that, which was really surprising. And I really liked it. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting and it had a lot to say kind of about the government at the time. And then once the Predator shows up, um, it kind of becomes an interesting take on masculinity, which is again another theme similar kind of to the original Alien. That you have, he's leading these super muscly guys who can do anything, who can kill anything. And when they encounter the predator, they finally kind of encountered something that is stronger than them and they don't really know how to handle it. And it's like it's something that, these characters are very confident in their masculinity and what that means to themselves and to how they present to others. And then you kind of have the predator and it's just killing them and they don't know how to like handle that. And like throughout this movie, like Arnold Schwarzenegger gets more and more naked, which is funny. But it is also kind of like a meditation on masculinity. Like he's really only able to beat the predator when he's like himself and he's not present like trying to, parade or show off to anybody else. And that's kind of cool. I don't know. It's interesting. And yeah, like I don't know. I think that this movie has more, it's not just some dumb action movie, and that's what I thought it was, but it's not. And it's got some like real ideas kind of cooking underneath there. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. Like I can see why people have liked it so much as they have. Anyway, on to number two. My number two favorite Predator movie is Killer of Killers. This one is so close with number one. Again, just like with Alien, it's really close and really tight between the two of them. It's really hard for me to like pick between the two of them. I'm really splitting hairs again, just like with Alien. But these movies are so good. These movies are so good. I love Dan Trachtenberg. I fully trust that man. He knows what he's doing with Predator movies, and that's really great. But Killer of Killers is the coolest fucking movie ever. It's so cool. Like this movie is split into three short stories throughout human history as predators hunt the top killers of their time, which is really cool. I have all three of them pictured here. The Viking Queen chick, so cool. Oh, it was just so cool. The action was so cool. It was so it's and this is animated, which I have a real bias for because I love animation. And I think that, I have really loved seeing in real time how the Spider Verse, how Enter the Spider Verse has really changed the animation narrative for like how things are animated and how much that movie has just been so influential. I think that is so cool to see. And this movie does do the Spider Verse animation style, which I really like and I think is really cool. Um, but my favorite segment of the three kind of short stories that we get here is the samurai one, which is kind of everybody's favorite. If you've seen this movie, it's so cool. It's like there's like no dialogue. There's like two words of dialogue maybe in the whole like 30-minute segment. And it is so well done. It is so cool. It's just the coolest. It is just it's wordless and it's samurai fighting a predator. What more could you want? Come on. And it's animated, which lets them do cooler shit than they could ever do in live action. And it is just so sick. This movie is so sick. And I did really like the third story too. That was probably the weakest, but it's still really cool with the World War II fighter pilot and he's fighting against the predator. It's so sick. It's so sick. But I really liked how all the characters acted and how everything just worked out. And like, yes, this movie is just trying to be as cool as fucking possible, which is why I have it at two and not as one. Um, it's a little light on the story, even though I love the stories individually. And I did like how everything connected. It's just, it's not necessarily trying to be a real movie. I hesitate to say that, but I don't know. It's it's mostly just trying to be as cool as possible, which I am absolutely down with. And this movie absolutely delivers on everything that it is trying to do. But and like I love the art style of everything. I think shot composition is done really well here. It's just it's just really cool. I really like this movie a lot. Like I don't know. I really like this movie. It's like just so cool. It's so cool. You'll have fun with it, I promise. Anybody who is interested, like, it's really cool. But my number one favorite Predator movie is Prey, um, which I feel like a lot of people, their favorite is either the original Predator or Prey. And Prey is my favorite. What I think makes Prey really great is its simplicity, but also the fact that it feels new. The story of Prey is dead simple. It's a girl who wants to prove herself to her tribe and her brother as being equally capable as everybody else. It's coming of age where Naru has to fight against the most dangerous predator that anyone has seen in order to prove herself. What's fun about this movie over some of the others is that it really takes its time getting you invested in Naru and her like journey and who she is as a character because she's the only one really going after the predator. And we see her brother a little bit, and we see some other members of the tribe a little bit, but not really a lot. Um, but I really think that that's the strength of this movie is its generally small cast, and like I really think that the simplicity of this movie really works to deliver a very classic Predator story done extremely well. Like it it doesn't it really makes us earn to the stuff with the predator. It doesn't feel over the top. And the action sequences are so cool. It's so cool. Like you see the predator and he is, in his like invisible kind of form a lot. But the first time that you really see the predator like in his true like what the shape of the predator is when he kills a bear and then he like lifts the bear over his head and the blood that like pools down from the bear gives shape to the predator and that is so cool. It's so cool. It's so sick. And this movie is just really good. It's really speaks for itself really well, so it's kind of hard to talk about what makes this movie so good, but it just is so good. And it's really easy to watch, but it has a lot more story going on within it, which I really enjoyed. And this is also an era like that you don't really ever get, like a Native American action movie is not something I've ever seen before. And I think that is really cool. And, a time period in history that we don't really get to explore a whole lot. And also, like something like this, which is sci fi, that is so cool. And I really like how resourceful she is, how smart she is, how she wins in the end is so cool. And it's just a really, really well done movie. And yeah, I don't know. I liked it a lot. I think that everyone would like this movie. It's just such a good movie. Yeah, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's really good. I liked it a lot. Anyway, we get a bit of a bonus here in that I played some of Alien Isolation. Um, I didn't want to include it in the rest of these because, or like in the Alien ranking, because I was like, oh, this is definitely its own thing, and I didn't finish it just because I got this game a couple weeks before Silksong came out, and I knew that I was gonna drop this the second the Silksong came out, which at the time of me recording this, I am still playing Silksong. That game is really good, but I am slow when I play video games because I've got a lot of other shit that I'm doing, and so I can't always devote the time to the video games that I would like. So I'm unfortunately very slow when I play games, and know that Hades 2, Silent Hill F, and Ghost of Yotei comes out on Friday, um, is, you know, I'm not gonna come back to this game anytime soon. Hades 2, I'm so excited for. I put like 150 hours or something into Hades 1. I have a tattoo for it, for fuck's sake. I love that game so much. I love that game so much. And I'm really, really excited to play Hades 2. I haven't played it yet. It's out, but I know that I really want to finish Silksong, and so I have to finish Silksong. Um, because I don't want to multitask. I want to just completely focus on one game at a time. And then Silent Hill Elf looks really good, and I'm really excited about it. I really like the Silent Hill 2 remake, so I'm really excited about that. And then Ghost of Yotei is another one that's going to take me a hot minute to play, and that one looks good. Hasn't come out yet, but it looks really good. So that's like 4 games and I'm almost, I don't know if I'm almost done with Silk Song, but I'm at the Citadel. I'm making progress. So, I don't think I'm going to come back to this game anytime soon. Uh, which is not necessarily the fault of this game. I probably would have kept going had not like four games that I really want to play come out at the same time, and all of them require a bit of a time sink, and I'm slow. So, so that doesn't really necessarily mean anything about the game itself. Though I will admit I do not love Alien Isolation. However, the reasons that I don't love it are definitely more for my personal taste, rather than general issues I have with the game. So I'm a person that generally I do like horror games, though I haven't played a ton. Um, I'm a gigantic fan of Resident Evil. I've played 2, 3, 4 remakes and 7 and 8. I cannot wait for 9. That's coming out in February. And I played the Silent Hill 2 remake from last year. Loved that game. I'll play Silent Hill F. So I really do like um, those horror games. That has kind of been my only exposure. Um, However, while I love these games, I'm not necessarily being scared by them genuinely, which is why I like them because I do not like being scared. I'm a very anxious person. I don't like being scared. That is not a fun feeling. However, I can be scared in a good way, but that's very rare and that's a very that doesn't really happen all the time. Um, However, when I'm playing a horror game, I'm always able to pull myself out of any scary situation and focus on the task at hand. Like, especially Silent Hill 2, that is a scary game. That is a scary game. But I was able to I feel like the scariest games I've probably played are Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 7. But I wasn't necessarily scared when I played either of those games because I was able to pull myself out and really focus on the task at hand. So, like, yes, the enemies are scary, and the situation I'm in is scary, but I have to kill those guys so I can move forward. I have to really focus on the task at hand of killing the enemies in front of me, which lets me kind of pull myself out of it and not be very scared. Um, I have to be really I have to be careful with the horror movies that I watch because for some reason those scare me a lot more than the games that I play, which everyone says that I'm crazy when I say that, but that's just kind of the case for me. Um, so I I need something that has a story that I'm invested in, and that is the case with the Resident Evils and Silent Hill. Um, and I don't really like things that are designed with the sole point of being scary or gross. And I know I talked about that earlier, but it's a little bit different in the context of a video game, especially with Alien Isolation. Um, so Alien has the sci-fi element, which is why I'm able to really like these movies, and then it's not just horror. Um, and Alien has more of a story, which I enjoy. However, the whole point of Alien Isolation is to scare you, which I think is done effectively, but at the disadvantage of making gameplay not very fun. When you're running from the androids or anything else, that mostly plays like a regular game. The mechanics of it remind me of Bioshock, which is a game that I really like. They're the original Bioshock, not Infinite. Um, which is a game that I really like. Your gun is like basically useless. Which I'm like, why even give me a gun if like I had to shoot the androids like 8 times before they die? Which is I know like from the original Resident Evil, but whatever. But I was kind of like okay with that because you can still sneak around and like avoid the androids. However, once you engage with the xenomorph, I became a lot less invested in this game, which would be surprising because that is the whole point of this game. Is you are running around and the xenomorph is coming after you. But this is where the game prioritizing scaring you over gameplay is at a disadvantage, and I feel like it becomes extremely apparent when you're in encounters with the xenomorph. So the xenomorph has access to your controller and can hear the noises that you make in the real world. If you play on computer, it also has access to your camera and I think your eye movement, but I play on PlayStation, so that wasn't even an option even if I wanted to. But it does have access to my controller, so it can hear the noises that I make in the real world, which is a very cool idea on paper. But when I'm hiding and I crack my knuckles and the xenomorph sprints and rips the door open that I'm hiding behind and kills me, that becomes more annoying than scary. It's not like I was screaming or holding my breath or something else. I cracked my knuckles, and the xenomorph, who was already outside the room, so I thought I was safe, then he comes back and rips the door, but that's not scary. That's annoying. And especially because this game only has manual save points. So every time I die, I lose quite a significant amount of progress, and that was annoying. Um, so the last thing that I did in this game before Silksong came out and I stopped was this really long section with the xenomorph that I found incredibly frustrating. You have to sneak through this area of the space station undetected and find out where a doctor's key is so that you can like open this other door to get another doctor. You find a board with room numbers that you have to search. The thing is that these door numbers do not correlate with any door that I have seen throughout the whole area. So I was like, fuck, okay, let me pull up a guide because I don't know where the fuck to go. And that is also really annoying because if you're saying, hey, look in these rooms, I should be able to find the rooms without a guide. That's not a puzzle. If I need to find the rooms, that's the puzzle. That's annoying. But it's just like, I can't find them because I don't understand what A29 is when every other room has been labeled like psychiatry or x-rays or doctor's lounge. Like, come on. That's annoying. Um, so I really had no idea where we're supposed to go. And so I pulled up a guide and then I couldn't get back to the point that I needed the guide because the xenomorph kept killing me. And every time I die, I lose hiding spots because the xenomorph remembers where I would like to hide from previous attempts. Effective if you want to make the experience scary, but not so enjoyable when you have to do the same section over and over again because you don't know where the fuck anything is. When I get frustrated, I get sloppy. And even getting to the room with the information about the potential rooms that the doctor's card could be in is a bitch and a half and long. There are no save points anywhere, so I have to do the whole thing every time, and I have to go really slowly because if the xenomorph sees you, that's it. I just found the whole thing to be so frustrating and not fun at all. And if more of the game is just more sections like that, then I am not interested. I That's just not for me. I do not like games that force me to go slow because when you hide from the xenomorph, it's like 2 minutes of like real life time where you have to hide behind the door because otherwise he'll hear you. And I do not like that the only gameplay here is basically hiding and running, and I know that's a personal thing. Um, and it reminded me of the Resident Evil 2 remake, which is why I have Mr. X there, and how much better I like that game. Yes, Mr. X is following you the whole game, like the xenomorph, but when you hear his footsteps, it is scarier because you actually can fight back a bit. He can punch you, and it's not game over. I realize that sounds counterintuitive. How does a guy chasing you who doesn't kill you in one hit make the experience scarier? When the xenomorph spots you in alien isolation, that's it. Curtains, it kills you every single time. And every time he would spot me, I would get pissed. Like, fuck, there goes that attempt. That's not fear, that's a pipeline to frustration. When you hear Mr. X's footsteps or you see him around the corner, you scramble to finish what you're doing, you try to heal so you can tank his punch, you try to move, you try to lose him, you look in your inventory to see if you can spare the bullets to stun him for a second. By giving the player the chance to react and defend themselves, it makes the experience more interactive, more fun, and ultimately a bit scarier. When you have the chance to get out of a situation, you activate ultra concentration mode to get out of it. You're activating fight or flight instead of just resignation that you're going to die. The xenomorph offers no chance to improvise, to change, or to adapt. Mr. X does. So while I did not get very far into Alien Isolation, I will say that it is probably not for me. If it worked for you, then that's great. I'm really bummed that it didn't really work for me, as that I hoped it would. I have heard that the developers are making a sequel, and that is definitely interesting to me. I do want to check that out to see what has changed in the 10 plus years since Isolation came out. So I'd say that if you're curious about this game, give it a try. Maybe it'll work for you in ways that it didn't for me. But also, if you're interested in real horror games, then check out Resident Evil and Silent Hill, because those are really good. But that was just kind of my bonus thing talking about Alien Isolation and why I don't think it really worked for me. But anyway, so now onto the tier list of all of these movies ranked together. So this does not include the Alien versus Predator movies because I could not find a tier list that had them, the Alien versus Predator movies and Alien Isolation. So I just had to pick which one I'd rather rank, and so I picked Alien Isolation. but I will say where Alien versus Predator goes in all this. So the S tier. So I have this all in order of kind of what I would rank all these. So S tier is the original Alien, then Prey, then Killer of Killers, then Aliens. These are all really, so like my number one Alien, two Prey, three Killer of Killers, four Aliens, but those are like all on the same level. Those are like old number one. Like it's just it is impossible for me to like differentiate between all four of those movies because they're so good and all good in such different ways. So that's my S tier. The order of this changes like every day. All these movies are interchangeable. They're all fantastic. I love all of these movies. A tier is Alien Earth right now. That could move up to S tier, given if it finishes and it kind of continues where it's going, then I think it will be in the S tier. But for now, it's in the A tier. And then we got the B tier, which is Alien Romulus, Predator, Prometheus, and Predators. I think that these movies are just really solid. I like these movies. I think they're pretty good, but not quite as good as everything else. So, kind of in the order of everything, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Alien Earth is 5. Romulus is 6. Predator is 7. Prometheus is 8. Predators is 9. I think I gave all of these movies 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. I think they're all just kind of solid. Flaws in different ways, but ultimately good. The C tier, we got Covenant, Predator 2, and Alien 3. All these movies I gave 3 stars on Letterboxd. A little bit more flawed than the B tier, but still good and still movies that I like. And then for the D tier, I got Alien Isolation. I know it's not necessarily fair because I never finished it, but that also kind of does say something about it. I definitely would have made more progress had Silksong not come out when it did, but I did not like it. And then F tier, we got Alien Resurrection because that movie sucks. And then The Predator gets its own category because that is the funniest goddamn movie ever to exist. I think that movie is so funny. So it just doesn't feel like right to rank it with everything else because it's just so funny. But yeah, that's kind of how all of them stack up against each other. And thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, this is very long. Thank you so much. And I cannot wait for Predator Badlands. I trust Dan Trachtenberg. Yes, the Predator looks a little goofy, but I don't care. I'm in. I'm excited. We got a Weyland-Yutani robot. Can't wait. I think this movie is going to be really sick, and I will be very excited for November 7th. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.